Yo, 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 what is going on, fam? We're back with another episode of the Cannabis Diversity Report. Today, I got my good brother, Will Perry, in the building. Will, what up?
What's good, man? Honor to be here. It's great to be here with you. And yeah, I'm excited, man.
Absolutely, man. Yo, I'm glad we're finally getting to do this. Finally our busy schedules have aligned and come together for us to get this done. But for those folks that don't know, Will is the CEO of Magic Hour Cannabis. Man, some of the most fire that I've ever had the pleasure of having. We just had the super dope. Just got the opportunity to come out there in Oregon a couple weeks ago and kick it. So man, that was dope, man. How you been?
I've been good, man. Actually having knee surgery tomorrow, so I'm gonna be out of commission for a couple weeks. But other than that, I'm great, man. It was great seeing you too, and just connecting with people like ourselves who are people of color in the industry, and just kind of reminiscing, sharing strategies. So it was great seeing you, man.
Yeah, man, and wishing you luck on the knee surgery, man. Take it easy out there on the basketball court, play it.
I would advise any entrepreneurs be careful because any type of injury can really set you back. So take care of your body for real, because that's a huge part of being a good entrepreneur is being healthy in mind and body. So I would just start with that.
Absolutely, man. And so Will, for for folks that like I said, may not be familiar with your story, just start with where you're from, how'd you get into cannabis, and how'd you come to start Magic Hour?
Yeah, so I'm originally from the Bronx. And so growing up, I didn't know too much about cultivation. I didn't even really smoke until I was about 2021. So I never really had aspirations of being in cannabis. I was doing the typical 9 to 5, working at an ad agency. And man, I was just getting grinded down. I wasn't enjoying the day to day. I was kind of questioning what I was doing, and it wasn't fulfilling. And so actually about 10 years ago, I had tore my other ACL. So this is my second ACL tear. But during this time, you have a lot of time to sit on the couch, reflect, and kind of take stock of your life. And so I realized I was not happy with what I was doing and I had to make a change. So I took all my stuff and drove across the country to LA just to do something new, try something different. And I was lucky I had a friend who had a weed grow at the time. And he was cool enough to let me kind of work with him part-time just to make a little money. And my passion for that was so high that it blossomed into kind of a full-time position with him. And I began going to the grow every day. I began obsessing over growing plants, learning as much as I could on YouTube, Instagram. But we'll get into that later. I would say YouTube is not the greatest place to learn about growing weed. But yeah, I found my passion and kind of realized I wasn't depressed going to the grow every day. Mm-hmm. So I stuck on to that feeling and I was like, yo, I have to foster this feeling. And I knew it was something I had to do because you got to do something you're passionate about. It's cliche, but you really do. So that's how I kind of got into it. Mind you, this is, legacy market, gray market in LA. So we're kind of wheeling and dealing. We're getting packs off to, dispensaries that may be licensed or not. So it wasn't the most stress-free time, if I can put it that way. There's also potential of law enforcement coming in since we weren't licensed. It was medical/legacy market. And so I just realized I could move to Oregon, start a brand, get a legit license, be able to pay taxes and do this above board. And ended up starting Magic Hour Cannabis. So it took us about 2 years to get the license from the time I moved to Oregon to the time we actually were up and operational. And so during that time, I was working for other farms for minimum wage. I think it was $12 an hour at the time. I was shoveling dirt, cleaning trays. I barely even touched the plants for maybe the first couple months. And so, yeah, as I said before, you have to be passionate about this stuff because it's not going to be all fun and games. I'd say 90% of it is getting in the nitty gritty, getting your hands dirty and doing the grunt work. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, two things that you said right off the top that I think are super common with a lot of these people I'm having conversations with. First, like that bold move, like you said, quit your job, went across the country, like, you know, got started in the game. I think that's similar to me, right? Like I had a professional career in finance, left that and got into cannabis. But then also, you know, it makes a lot of sense when you say that you had that background in advertising, because that kind of goes to show like how you had the skills to build like this incredible brand, especially one that's so well known in like a saturated market like Oregon, right? So like, what was that process like? What was your thought process like when, you know, like in those early days, like, and what made you even like look at cannabis in the first place? Was it like, especially being older, was it when you tore your ACL, like you know, you started using it for like medical, or, you know, how would you what made you take a serious look at the industry?
Honestly, I did it initially for money, just in terms of like I'd moved to LA. I had a little job at an ad agency, but nothing, you know, incredible to be able to live well in LA because it's super expensive. And so it was more out of necessity, but I kind of grew into realizing it was a passion. And so once I kind of realized it was a passion, I wanted to hold on to that feeling and I wanted to just pursue that. So I've been a big smoker, but in terms of taking care of the plants, tending to them, seeing the life cycle, seeing what different tactics produce different types of bud, different yields, different terpene profiles, all of that stuff really intrigued me. Kind of the intersection between art and science, as I like to say, because there is a lot of science, obviously, but there's also a feel to it. There's an art to growing good weed as well, being in touch with the plants. And so I love that aspect of it too. Sometimes I feel like I'm just meditating in the garden. But in terms of the brand aspect, while I was working for other companies out here, I realized that these companies were just putting out product, right? So they're just putting out like nice nug shots. They're not really relating to the community. They don't really have an identity. And so I saw really a big hole in the market for a brand, not just a company, to where people can relate to you. You show your authentic self. And I think that's important because a lot of growers come from more of a hermit type world where you want to be low key, you don't want to be seen, you don't want to be heard. And so I just wanted to bring that to the light and show people, hey, I'm a normal dude. I'm out here growing weed. It's not this mythical thing where you have to be an older white dude with a beard in the mountains. I kind of want to normalize growing and show people anyone could do it, specifically the Black and Brown community. And so I became passionate about that as well. And I also just saw the opportunity. Cannabis is exploding nationwide, worldwide. It's a new industry. And so it's also fun. So all those factors together kind of made me realize this is my purpose.
Yep. And how long did it take before you like really got it down, before you got good, like before you was able to really grow some fire?
Honestly, man, anyone who tells you they got it down right now is a liar, for real, because everyone is still trying to figure it out. Even the most seasoned growers who've been growing for, 30, 40 years, the humble ones will still tell you they're still figuring it out every day, especially with all the new science coming out, new nutrient lines. There's always some new technology or skills that you can learn and apply to your grow. So we're always learning, man. We're always learning. But it took me about, I'd say, seven years until I was really competent in the grow, to where I can handle it myself, lead a team. And so you really have to put in your work. That's what people don't realize. It's not just watering a plant and putting, some plants in soil. There's a tight schedule. You have to deal with employees. You have to deal with license fees, payroll. So it's much more than just growing a plant.
Right. And so I know you said that when you were first starting, one of the first places you went to kind of get that information was looking at YouTube. And I know, like, I've looked at YouTube before. There's like hundreds of different people. They all got different methods, like all of this different stuff. Like, how did, so that may not be the best way. Like, what do you, for folks that do say they want to start growing, like what is the first step? Like, where should people start?
So about 10 years ago, when I was getting into growing, YouTube and forums were kind of the only place where you could get good information. So the forums were like Grass City, Roll It Up. These were just forums that people would post questions on. And if you're lucky, you'd get some kind of coherent answer with pictures. But again, you don't know who the hell is even replying to you. It could be Joe Schmo in his basement. So I was lucky enough to realize that Instagram became an amazing source of knowledge as well as what not to do. So I started following the Jungle Boys, I'd say about 8 years ago, and they were a huge inspiration on Instagram because they would show their full setup. So they would show their setup, the lights they use, the nutrients, the feeding schedule. They were super transparent with everything they did. And you'd be surprised. So I'd say Instagram is a great place to go because there's a lot of people like myself that are willing to share knowledge and just put it out there and help the community. But I would say follow large commercial grows to where you can see different setups, different nutrient types, different lights. There's so many different variables in growing like amazing weed, and you can do it so many different ways. So I would use Instagram as a tool to check out as many different possibilities as you can. I think that's one of the best ways. If you can't do that, or if you want to go a step further, I would move to a legal state and kind of just dive into it. Apply for as many cultivation jobs as you can, even an entry-level job, whatever you can do, even a trimmer job. Anything you can do to get your foot inside that grow and learn as much as you can from, the compliance software to how a finished product should look to the storage, curing. You just want to get your foot inside a grow. So I'd say the two best things you can do are follow excellent Instagram accounts of good growers, and also apply for as many entry-level positions at grows as you can. And this applies for retail as well. Yep. Don't be afraid to kind of go in. And like I said, I started with minimum wage, and now I'm lucky enough to own my own company. So don't be discouraged by starting at a low position. Those are sometimes the best positions to learn at.
Yeah, facts. And you know what? And I'm gonna reiterate that because that was a major key right there. Because like my first job I had in cannabis, I made $15 an hour, right? So it's like, people don't always see the journey, everything it takes to get there. People might see Magic Hour and see, you on CNN now, but they don't know like all the steps that they took to get there.
Right. And just on that point, I would also say don't get discouraged by looking at amazing grows on Instagram and thinking you can never attain that. Because as you're just saying to here, like there's a lot that goes behind the scenes that people don't post. So they may show the perfect canopy, they may show the fat bud, they may show, the finished products, but there's a lot of failures. There's a lot of, turbulence that goes with that. So just always remember that too, because it's easy to get discouraged looking at people's success sometimes on Instagram. It can make you kind of feel like, why am I not achieving that success? So, on the Instagram vein, don't get caught in that trap. Just use it as educational and inspirational. Don't get beaten down by it.
Yeah. And so on that note, like people start out like whether you got a small grow in the basement or like in the garage or something like that at home, like how do you go from scaling up from, that like one or a couple plants to like, to having a whole full scale commercial grow? Because I'm sure it's different, right?
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of mistakes. That's a common mistake that people make, is growing 10 plants in a tent in their basement and then thinking that they have the knowledge to now run a facility with thousands of plants. And I do a lot of consulting gigs and I have a lot of clients that started like that, but they're smart enough to enlist someone like myself to kind of hold their hand during the process and help them avoid a bunch of pitfalls. But I would say, like I said, start small. You can grow at your house in a tent and then apply for as many jobs as you can. Get your foot inside someone else's grow because you want to be learning in that environment where it's not detrimental to your pocket. So I was at a couple grows before I started Magic Hour. They, made a bunch of mistakes. They lost crops, but that wasn't on my dime. And so I was able to learn from afar without it really affecting my bottom line. And I kind of saw what not to do, which is, I think that's the most important. Someone can tell you what to do, but what not to do helps you avoid, major pitfalls. So again, I'd say just practice as much as you can, but going from your basement to thousands of plants is not ideal. I would not advise that. I would advise to at least work for someone else for a couple of years, understand workflow, understand managing, the schedule and all these plants, and then you can go do your thing. But don't rush the process. Everyone in this industry that's doing well put in work. They put in their time, and there's no way to really cheat the system in growing. So you have to put in that work.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of like putting in the work with the process, like what is it, like, what do you think are, and this is something we talk about all the time, right? Like, I think there's this misconception, like a lot of people out here are chasing THC, like they're thinking that's what goes in to make weed the most fire. What is the process, in your opinion? What makes weed quality, right? Like, what do you think goes into that? Is like that most people probably don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. And honestly, I'd say I spend a good amount of my time educating people on the difference between THC and terpenes, and what's more important. Because I've had a ton of high THC product that tastes like cardboard. The high isn't good. The smoke is harsh. It's not cured properly. But unfortunately, that's like the metric that's been used to quantify good weed in the industry thus far, because it's still such a new industry. There's no way for shop owners and buyers to really quantify weed besides the look, the smell, and the taste. So they've unfortunately went by THC percent. I am seeing that shift towards terpene content because, from a scientific standpoint, terpenes are really what get you high, and different terpenes have different effects. So you want to look for bud that's higher in terpene percentage, because not only is it going to be more flavorful, it's going to have better effects, and it's just going to be an overall better experience, as opposed to just something that's 35%, had no love in it, was completely fed, salt nutrients. And again, I've had good salt bud, but I think that's also just goes to show that people are trying to make a quick buck with this product. And that's kind of along the THC percent conversation. So people are hunting strains that yield high THC percent. So in turn, they can go to the retail shops and say, hey, this was 33%. This is a higher ticket. So I'm hoping that people move away from that. I'm seeing a lot of farms move away from that, which is great. But I feel like we need a collective effort to change, shift the narrative and have a paradigm shift in how people look at quality bud, because terpenes is the way to go.
Right. And I mean, I could imagine it's probably especially critical, like the market you're in Oregon, like it's a super developed market. It's been one of the oldest markets. And I'm sure that there's a bunch of growers, right? Like, what do you think is the main thing that's helped you to like stand out and differentiate and still be around despite it being like such a competitive market?
Honestly, man, I would say the first thing is quality. So I mentioned other types of nutrients before, salt-based nutrients, which again, people grow incredible product with salts, but we use organic nutrients. So really minimal inputs. We use organic soil. We use compost teas, light amendments. So we're not really pumping the plants with all these nutrients that get them enormous to where the yields are crazy. We focus more on small batch and quality. And so I think while a lot of people have been kind of hunting big yields and high THC numbers, we've been focusing on that quality. We've been focusing on cure time, storage, just the overall experience. The main thing people say when they smoke Magic Hour is like, wow, this is super smooth, super flavorful. You're not going to cough up a lung. It's just going to be a great experience. And I keep saying that because that's what you really want to give your consumers. You want it to be a whole experience, from the way it burns to the way it tastes, to the way it makes you feel. And so I think that's really differentiated us, along with branding. Like I said, we're a younger brand. There aren't many owners that are, around 30, and especially people of color. And so we bring like kind of a fun new brand to the industry, specifically Oregon. And so I think all of those things combined has given us a leg up on the competition.
Yep. And what's your favorite strain to grow and or smoke? Are they like, are they the same, or is there one that you like particularly like just enjoy growing, or like, what do you like smoking on?
That's a great question. I would say I love my Gelato 25 crossed with Dosey Dose, and that's an archive cut. I also love our apple fritter, our Tropicana punch, but I'd say the Gelato 25 Dosey Dose. For me, I just love that fuel smell. It has that sweet kind of gelato ice cream taste as well. So I love that, as well as how it grows. It grows pretty easy. It yields well. And that's another thing you have to think about as a cultivator is it's not necessarily what you like smoking the most, but it's what checks all those boxes. Does it yield? Does it grow well? And does it smoke well? So all those three things combined is kind of what I think about when I'm choosing new strains, as well as, what are the flavor profiles that people like right now. So I'm seeing kind of an emergence of more fruity, gassy strains. Previously, I'd seen a lot of just straight gas, OG when I lived in California, but Oregon has a slightly different palate. And so we've had to kind of, shift and figure out what flavors people like.
Yeah, man. And like you said, I'm sure like having had like all of that experience there definitely has allowed you to be a connoisseur. Which is like, as we think of this new market, like right over here on the East Coast, like it's all so new, like especially like adult use just being legalized. Like, yo, yeah, from being from the Bronx, I'm sure you got to be excited about, what's happening in New York. What are you kind of, are you looking at, opportunities to come back over here to the East Coast or, do anything like that?
Yeah, right now we're looking at a lot of opportunities, whether it's kind of either franchising out the brand, teaming up with someone who has a license and capital, or just starting our own project. There's definitely so much opportunity, and people need good operators. That's really the big thing. They think it's just about growing or selling, branding. You need savvy operators in the grow that can problem solve, have the foresight to see where the industry is going, where certain trends are going. And so I think that's where we actually finally have some leverage. I remember when we first started trying to raise money for Magic Hour, probably about 5 years ago, no one was interested in, 20-something-year-old Black Jewish kid from the Bronx, giving them $1 or $2 million to start a random grow. And so now we finally have leverage where investors are contacting us. They either want to invest in us or they want to partner with us. And so, yeah, we're looking at a bunch of opportunities, even international. I think a lot of people overlook the international market, but we've had some interesting conversations with people overseas, and that's something that I'm looking at as well. But the opportunities are endless, man. And just like you're seeing, just wanted to congratulate you on all your success in New Jersey and with Simply Pure. But yeah, I think you guys are going to see that the opportunities is unlimited out there. So
thank you, bro. Thank you, man.
Hopefully we'll have Magic Hour on Simply Pure shelves in a couple of years.
You know it. We're gonna try to make that happen, man. Like one of the things that I would want to ask you too, right? Especially as we look at New York, like New Jersey, like there's like a couple hundred like conditional licensees that are, that have licenses. New York, I know the dispensary applications are open now. Like cultivators, or I think like the former hemp growers, like they're already getting started. Like, what advice do you have for like new folks? Like, I just got my license, right? Like, what should they be doing? Like, what advice do you have for like new licensees and new people getting in the industry?
I mean, it sounds a little self-serving, but I would say hire someone like myself. It doesn't need to be me, but someone who's operated in a legal market for at least 2 to 3 years, who understands not only growing, but also the compliance, leading a team. Like I said, it's all about being a good operator, like any other business. If you're going to start a bakery, you don't need just the best baker. You need someone who can oversee the whole operation, from the sales to packaging to the branding. And so I would implore people to look at all of those things, not just the growing, because just having good weed is not going to fly these days. You need a solid brand. Look at someone brand like Cookies. They have good weed, but they also have large brand recognition. And so I would tell people to focus on both. Don't just focus on the build out of the grow or hiring growers. Focus on getting a PR team, marketing team, bolstering up your brand, having a dope logo, having dope content. I think that's where things are going as well, because people want to align with authenticity, and you're not going to show your authenticity by having a bland brand that just pumps out, mid flower. You know what I mean? You need to have a brand that has awesome flower, has a compelling story, and authenticity. It's all about authenticity. So I would say put yourself out there as a new licensee. Put a little of your flair in the company. You know what I mean? Like, don't just fade into the background with all these other soulless brands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's such a good point too, man. And like, you know, when you look at, I'm super excited about New York, man. I see my guy Jason from New York over there in the comments, man. Um, you know, like, and I think what you said is so important about the brand and finding somebody with experience, because it was the same thing for me, right? Like as much time as I've had in the industry and been around, like especially with me going after retail business, I was, you know, like having Wanda, right, to partner up with Simply Pure and her experience. All she had 10 years in Colorado, that made a big difference for me and being able to try to figure it out. You know, one of the questions that came from the chat, somebody asked, my guy Jason asked, what advice do you have for folks with legacy brands? If you're like in the legacy market right now and you have a brand, well-known following, like, you know, you may have, you know, whatever, what advice do you have, you know, for those folks that are looking to build a brand and go into the legal industry?
I would say keep doing your thing, keep building what you have, keep operating. And look, I'm not a lawyer, attorney, anyone like that. I would defer to someone like that. But it seems like they're letting legacy operators continue operating within reason right now in New York. So I would say continue what you're doing. I would say go heavy, heavy, heavy on social media, on content. And that's something I have to tell myself as well all the time is, hey, we got to put more content out. We got to show who we are. We have to show our authenticity. So I'd say go heavy on the content and keep building your brand while you're waiting for the license. Or you could also try to team up with a bunch of people who, you know, have the conditional licenses. They may have no brand currently. So they may want to kind of piggyback off of your brand, team up, and use what you've been doing in the legacy market for all these years. So there's a lot of opportunities to team up with people, especially people who don't necessarily have a strong brand. So I'd maybe seek those people out. Look at the list of conditional licensees in New York. I believe there's 292 of the hemp farmers. Even go down that list and hit them up and say, hey, I have this legacy brand. You know, it has a great following. We're known in the city. Would you want to team up? That's some actionable advice that I could give.
Yep. I think that makes a lot of sense. Oh yeah, no, people are loving the advice that you're giving too, man. And so like as you think the market as you see the market evolving, right? Like what like where do you think this is going? Like what do you think is important for, like, as we look at like federal legalization, like all these types of things, right? Like does that change anything in your strategy? Like what do you do to prepare for that?
So what I did when I made the brand is I looked at other parallel industries, and something I looked at was beer or wine, as well as food. So I kind of looked at the evolution of food, let's say the last 10 years. When I was growing up in New York, there was Seatown, D'Agostino's, just kind of these like mid grocery stores with no emphasis on quality. There's an apple there, you get the apple. Now we're seeing the evolution to there's a Whole Foods almost, you know, in every neighborhood. And so there's people discerning between how this apple was grown, where it's from, the taste of it, was it organic? And so I applied that to Magic Hour and kind of knew that we'd have to start organic to give us that leg up. Because I think once people realize, oh, wow, some of the stuff is organic, some's not that I'm smoking, they're going to gravitate towards the organic because, you know, everyone is into, you know, self-improvement and putting the best things in their body. And so that's kind of what I looked at when starting Magic Hour and seeing those trends. And so I think as it becomes more widely spread and legalized, you're going to have a discerning customer that's looking at terpene profiles, how it's grown. Is it grown in soil? Is it grown with compost teas? Are you using synthetic nutrients? So I think that's exactly where the industry is going to be evolving to, where you're going to have your Bud Lights and then you're going to have your $13 very terpy craft beers. You know, you could have your organic wines and you could have your mass-produced wines. I think that's where cannabis is going.
Yeah, and speaking of that, like organic thing, to dive into that a little bit more, like does it being organic, do you think it's just like you said, like everything else, like vegetables, people want that organic quality? Does it make it smoke better? Like, or is there anything like that? And then also I would ask, like, because of course you see a lot of times like all the different nutrients, everything like that in the world. If somebody decided like they're growing now and they want to try to shift or start using organic, Like, is there anything specific that that they should try to use, like, shop for or anything like that?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest difference, and look, there's pros and cons of organic, as well as there's pros and cons of using synthetic salts. I would say, for one, if you're going for straight yield, organic is not the way to go. There's people that yield a lot more than we do using salts, and that's basically just pumping the buds up. Think of cows that are fed hormones as opposed to the free range cows that graze, that are fed, a normal diet. People kind of pump up the buds with the salt nutrients, and so they're going to get higher yields. On the other hand, organic doesn't yield as much and is much harder to grow. So there is a learning curve with organics. I would say the best way to learn is trial and error. So start with a couple plants in your tent, see what works and what doesn't work. Find the right medium for you, find the right soil blend. There are a bunch of different soil blends out there. I would look at companies like Roots Organics. They have an awesome line of different soils, different potting medias, as well as nutrients, compost teas. So if you're looking to get into organics, I would say check out Roots Organics. But there is a steeper learning curve for sure. Salts is easier, it yields more, but in my opinion, it doesn't have the same taste, it doesn't have the same character, and it doesn't smoke the same as organic. But there are debates about that, but this is just from my personal anecdote.
And dirt or hydroponic?
I'm a dirt guy, man. I'm a dirt. But again, hydroponic is much easier in terms of setup, harvest, even feeding. A lot of times it's hard to do auto water or auto irrigation with organic nutrients because of the viscosity of the nutrients. So a lot of times with organics, you have to hand water, because otherwise your auto drip lines get clogged. With salts, it's much easier to set up automatic irrigation systems. But yeah, I digress on that. I could go on a rant for hours, but yeah, I would say I'm a soil guy for sure. And that's the way I learned. My friend who taught me how to grow, he was an organics grower. And so that was kind of just my base knowledge. I've never used salts or anything other than soil in my career. So that's kind of what I know and what I feel is best for not only the environment, but for our consumers. And yeah, it's something I believe in pretty strongly.
Yep. And backtracking a little bit, you talked about the importance of content and how that helps you with your brand. I've seen you. I've seen a couple of celebrities pull up on you. I've seen you on different types of different types of news outlets and everything like that. Like, who's been some of the dopest people that you've got to collab or work with, or even smoke a J with since you've been in the industry, and had Magic Hour?
Yeah, man, it's crazy even to think about the people I've been able to meet through starting Magic Hour, and these are some of the people I've looked up to for years. So I'd say the most amazing person we've met through this is Ricky Williams, who's the ex-NFL player. Just overall a great guy, but he was one of my favorite players growing up. And so he came to Oregon, and through a mutual friend, he visited our grow. And he was thinking of starting his own grow in Oregon. And after chilling with us, we smoked a 1/2 pound joint with him, showed him our grow and our product. We actually started consulting for his company, the Heisman, here in Oregon, and showing them how to grow using the Magic Hour methods. Our ways of growing organic, high terpene profiles, compost teas, soil, etc. So I'd say he was one of the dopest people, extremely down to earth. And if anyone ever watched Ricky, run the ball, he smokes as strong as he runs the ball. He was smoking this 1/2 pound joint while everyone else tapped out. I think we had maybe 10 or 12 people on it, and he just kept hitting it. He finished to the last hit. So that was amazing. We've met Trippie Redd, who's a young superstar and just a great dude as well. We went to his last concert. We were able to kind of go backstage and watch him, watch his manager roll up blunts for him for every song of Gelato 25. So after each song, he'd come in, get a new blunt, fire it up. So that was super cool as well. We've met a lot of amazing journalists. But yeah, I would tell people that, we've never paid for a placement. We've never paid for media or for meeting any, celebrities or people like that. I would tell people to leverage your connections and leverage your product. So, if you have to sample out a couple grams here and there to, that's compliant, and get it to so-and-so just to show them the product, do that. Leverage all your network connections, and use Instagram, because people wonder, oh, how'd you get on CNN or Forbes? A lot of these things were cold DMs or cold emails. I would go, let's say on Forbes.com, I would see who's writing pieces about cannabis, and I would email all those people with a cold pitch. And 99% of the time, I wouldn't hear anything back. But, that one time is all you need for someone to be intrigued by your story, and give you a little momentum. So after things like that, then people started reaching out to us. But I know you didn't even ask this question, but in terms of
this is good. Yeah. That's
take all of your shots. Use Instagram, email, Google. It's very easy to figure out who's writing these articles or who's a decision maker in writing these articles, or doing, video pieces. So just be as resourceful as you can, because in cannabis, no one is going to give you any opportunity. You really just have to go and seize it. And I've definitely had times where I felt annoying, emailing all these people blindly and following up, but that's what you have to do as an entrepreneur.
Nah, I mean, that was great advice. And those are the type of things that, you get, and you can give that message because you're like living it. Right. And it's been the same for me too on that one. Like, I've been, all the media that I've been blessed to get, it's just been organic. And a lot of it really has been because of that social media, posting content. People see you, what you're doing, like the show, like stuff like that. Like it's really helped to expand the audience. And like you said, it draws people into you for sure.
Exactly. And it's not the easiest to make content, to put yourself out there. I'm like a fairly, I'm not an introvert, but I'm more of a shy person. I don't love, putting myself out there, but it will yield results. And so for anyone out there who's kind of, iffy about it or feeling weird about, putting content out, just do it, because it's going to lead to, awesome opportunities. Nothing good comes from being comfortable. You have to really make yourself uncomfortable in this journey and embrace that discomfort. Like I said, I moved across the country, quit a good job, had all my family and friends kind of scratching their heads, wondering what I was doing. But you just have to have that courage and lean into the discomfort, because there's a lot of discomfort in this industry, as awesome as it is. You know what I mean?
For sure, man. Nah, I definitely know that feeling. And it was super dope how you just got to like casually say, yeah, smoked a half-pound joint with Ricky Williams. Like, it's like him, like he's such a like icon. If you think about like going back to when we were young, like I remember seeing him, like he was really about it. Like he was one of the first like real like cannabis advocates that I got to like see, like right what he did with his career, like that, to really stand up for the plant. I think he's a major part of what helped this to be so mainstream. So he would definitely be on the top of my list of top people I would want to burn one with.
Yeah, we can make it happen, bro. We can make it happen. We can probably get him on the podcast. We'll see. But yeah, man,
though he smoked the whole thing.
Anyone is on, go to the Magic Hour Cannabis Instagram. We have a post on there where he's smoking the half-pound joint. We have myself and my partner Adriana smoking. So yeah, that was amazing. But he was really a martyr, because for anyone that doesn't know about Ricky, he was one of the best players in the NFL for years, but his career was cut short because he kept getting suspended for smoking weed. And he was doing that not to be defiant, but for pain management. He didn't want to be hooked on Vicodin, Percocets, all these things that they pump players with to get them to perform and recover. He just wanted to smoke weed and not get addicted to pills. So he's super deserving of all the success he's having with his company, the Heisman, and great guy as well.
Absolutely. And one other thing, so like for people that are like, if you are, let's just say you are somebody sitting there in advertising or something like that, or like, some other job that has nothing to do with cannabis, right? Like, what do you, for those types of people, like, where's some things that you recommend? Are there any type of like education things that you recommend they do, like anywhere that they should go, like to get their foot in the door? I know you already talked a lot about like taking that first step, like working in the industry, but what are some good educational resources?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. But first, I just want to say everyone has different skills. So you're saying, if you're in advertising, if you're in finance and you're looking to get in cannabis, firstly, hold on to those skills and figure out how to leverage those into the industry. So don't just start from square one. If you're, an accounting person, utilize all of your accounting knowledge in the industry and dive into that. So don't just think that because you're in advertising in a previous life, you can't apply that to everything you're doing in cannabis. So just identify what your skill is and use that. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing, in terms of education, there's so many good podcasts out right now, like yours. I would check stuff like that out. And I would also just read as much as I could. Read articles on Forbes, Leafly, Weed Maps, read about other entrepreneurs and how they started in the industry, because there's no one-stop shop for getting in the industry. There's no easy way. Everyone has their own narrative. Everyone had their own path that's unique. And so I'd say there's no exact playbook that I would say, hey, go to www.learnhowtogetinCannabis.com. That's not a thing. I would say, you know what I mean? Like, you have to create your own journey. That's really the best advice I could give, is create your own unique journey, but take tidbits from what other people have done and apply that to be successful. So something like I talked about today, working for other grows for a year, maybe 2 years, just dive into it and do something like that, or move across the country to a state that's actually legal, where you can be around the plants, where you can be around dispensaries. I know for me, when I was in New York, the only cannabis culture I had was going up to 168 and getting some sour from my Dominican homie in the stairway. You know what I mean? Like, that was the extent of cannabis culture I had. There weren't people I knew that had grows. There weren't dispensaries. And so just immersing yourself in cannabis culture in a legal state that either has medical or rec programs, I think that's the best education. If you can't move, I hate to say it, but you may not have that burning passion and desire that you need to get in cannabis, or at least move for a month or two, get a hands-on experience. But I think that's some of the most actionable advice I can give, is get to a state that has a medical or rec program where you can be, in the woods with cannabis.
Yep. And if somebody is coming to visit Oregon, where are some places, where can people pick up some Magic Hour? Where's some dispensaries around where they can grab it?
Yeah, so we're in a bunch of stores. I'd say right now a good place is Vibe Amberlight. They just rebranded to Vibe Cannabis, formerly known as Amberlight. We're in Sarah, Electric Lettuce, Pharma, but also just check our Instagram for our stories, and our website as well for kind of the newest drops, because we do small batch. So if we drop, let's say, a half pound here, it may be gone in a couple weeks, and then we drop somewhere else. So just stay tuned to our stories and our website.
Yep. And we'll tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find Magic Hour to, look up the business and learn more.
Yeah. So my personal Instagram is Will Grows It. You feel free to hit me up anytime if you're an aspiring grower or cannabis entrepreneur. I try to respond to as many DMs as I can. So hit me up on there, Will Grows It. And then our Instagram for Magic Hour is just Magic Hour Cannabis. And yeah, feel free to hit us up on either of those. Check out our content. Let us know what you think. And yeah, also my email is will@magichourcannabis.com. So for any of the more formal people, feel free to email me. But I try to make myself as accessible as possible, especially for Black and brown cannabis entrepreneurs, because there's so few of us, especially here in Oregon. I would say the only Black growers I know are myself and Jesse Horton. So it's limited, and that's out of 1,500 active licenses. So you can imagine how crazy that is. And we're two of the only owners and operators that I know of. There may be a couple other Black and brown owners, but they're not necessarily in the trenches, every day. So yeah, I'm passionate about helping our people progress in this industry. So hit me up.
Yeah, and shout out to my guy Jesse too, man. I'm always singing y'all's praises, man. Like it must be something special about Oregon, and I say there's no lie. Like, y'all too have the best weed that I've ever smoked. Like, y'all both got that fire, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, Loud is awesome. And I feel like I shout out Jesse every podcast, but I'm gonna continue to, because just a quick little story. When I first came to Oregon and I had no clue what I was doing, I didn't have a brand name, I didn't have a license. All I had was like this dream of starting my own grow. I had reached out to Jesse because I saw he was making some noise in Oregon, and he was the only other person of color I saw. And he was cool enough to meet with me, and he kind of like gave me that confidence that I could start it up. You know what I mean? So big shout out to Jesse. So I'm trying to pay it forward in that same regard, where I can light the fire under someone else, you know what I mean, and get them going. So that's what I'm passionate about, as well as growing amazing weed. So
Yeah. Nah, well, this was super dope because you literally gave a blueprint out here. Like if there's somebody that wants to get into the industry, like you gave so many things where they could follow the steps to like how to do it. Like this has been like probably one of the most informative like episodes that I feel like I've had. So like, no, thank you, bro, for coming through and dropping these gems, man.
of course, man. Yeah, I try to give actionable insights because there's a lot of info out there that's kind of like very abstract. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, oh, start a business, like start a brand, do this, but it's like you need actionable insights to actually be able to execute and further what you're doing in the industry. So, like I said before, move to a legal state, study as much as you can, see what other people are doing right and wrong. But you have to have that passion. If you feel like you're forcing yourself to do any of this, it's not the right industry for you.
Yep. And I know you're about to be at MJ BizCon too coming up soon, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. For anyone out there who's going, I'll be giving a panel on not only growing high quality organic cannabis, but also coupling that with building your brand at the same time. Like what we talked about before. I see a lot of companies just doing one. We got to put both together. And I'll talk about how to do that at MJ BizCon. I believe it's November 17th. So yeah, if anyone's out there, come through, check it out. We'll chop it up and we'll smoke a big one after. So
hey, I'm looking forward to that. And anything I might have left out or forgot that you want to, leave the people with some final gems or thoughts before we did.
no, man, I just want to thank you because I don't know if people know all the work you've been doing even prior to you getting your license, but you're someone who's, been putting on for the community for years. So just big shout out to you. And I'm super happy to see you get your dispensary and killing it, man. So yeah, I just want everyone to know the work you've been putting in behind the scenes to help people like myself. So,
I appreciate it. It's a labor of love, man. It's definitely been a blessing, like every single one of these opportunities, and just to get to like having like originally when I started this show, it was like this, right? There's people that's my friends, my homies that I know that are dope, like doing all this dope stuff all around the country, just get to share that experience. So we've been rocking together for some years now, bro. That's crazy. Yeah, so appreciate you for coming through, man.
Yeah, it's been dope to see your evolution, and I feel like we have a dope community of Black and brown cannabis entrepreneurs that we've all fostered, you know what I mean? Through Instagram, we can see what everyone's doing and kind of gain inspiration. I'm on a couple little group chats that are super inspirational. So yeah, it's been dope to grow alongside you, bro.
Yeah, likewise, man. And funny story, yeah, bro. It was so funny when that robot pressed you out in the parking lot.
I did get pressed by a security guard robot. I did. That is true.
Michelle, bro, appreciate you for coming through, pulling up on me, and we'll get up soon. I guess I'll see you in person at MJ Biz.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Be good, my dude.
All right, fam. And everybody, thanks for rocking with us. Y'all be easy.
Peace.
Peace.